part one of this 1965 interview, Anaïs Nin explained how her famous prose poem House of Incest was written. In part two, she answers questions Oliver Evans has about the contents. House of Incest was divided into 7 of what Nin called movements akin to those in musical compositions. Here, Evans probes her about movements 2 and 3, trying to put her surrealism-inspired prose into conventional terms. For reference, I use page numbers from the 1989 Swallow edition, which is the same as most other editions in print today.
I think that I'm a little clearer today about what I was trying to do here. Mm-hmm. It's a description of a state of, in a sense, a state of madness. Mm-hmm. The emotional reaction to the experience has been confusion and destructive fantasies and nightmares. So there's a mixture of obsessions, nightmares, and anxieties.
Yes.
Really descriptions of states of anxiety.
Mm-hmm. This is the section on 27 and 28.
But then it continues. I'm floating
into the next,
again.
Yes.
See,
so it's the same state.
Feeling. I'm in unreality. And all the facts and all the, sweeping over me. In other words, I've lost my contact with the earth and with reality and with relationships.
This movement continues the mood of the preceding one then.
In fact, I think this whole thing is pulling away from the earth, isn't it? Yes.
Yes.
There's unreality. There's a fissure in my vision, and madness will always rush through. Mm-hmm. And it's a description of states of consciousness. I was amazed to see these states of consciousness described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
Oh.
And O'Leary says that the Tibetans meant these states to be not after death, but within life itself.
Were they induced, drug-induced, or how?
Leary thinks they were. I'm not so sure that they were, but they could be induced by anxieties too. Mm-hmm. In other words, when there is not a successful relationship, closeness and unity to a human being, I say, then I float away, the I of the book, the self of the book, floats away in unreality and is lost in space. Mm-hmm. And this is how I describe really the loss of contact.
This is another phase of torture, isn't it?
Yes, it's another state of anxiety.
But it really continues the same one,
yes,
doesn't it?
But it's another phase of it. You might say that this one really goes into space.
Yes.
It's far away, further and further away from human life.
Oh, it's an excursion into space, then.
Yes.
An excursion into, this is inner space.
Inner
right?
space, yes. I speak of that, of being in space and becoming a planet.
Yes, and then I had this question here, where does this dream end? Now this one says here, the dream rings through me like a giant cup or bell, and it brushes by me with bat wings, and so forth. And this is...
Well, here I mixed the two again. You see, I mixed the dream and states of consciousness or states of anxiety. They're really not. They're really states of... the French have a better word for it, really. État d'âme, is better than states of consciousness, really. They're psychic states. Or states that the psyche goes through. I never walked. Then I even deny reality altogether. Maybe none of this happened. You see, everything took place elsewhere, and that everything was unreal. And the keynote.
This distance that is spoken of here, I feel the distance like a wound. Is this the distance now between you and
Sabina?
No, earthly life.
Between me and the eye of the book, between me and reality, between human life and states of anxiety which take one away, the imagery. I gave all the image of a state of anxiety which takes you away from human beings and away from the earth and away from human life.
This is the distance then.
This is the sense of distance.
Yes.
Distance. I keep repeating the word and also giving all the moods of distance. I never attended the wedding.
And now everything for me took place either in the belfry, where I was alone, or in the cellar, where I nibbled at the candles. Now,
that was an image of, you see, of never being where the drama is really taking place, but being always on the periphery, which the neurotic, this is really a description of
not on the level, either above the level or below the level.
Yes.
Of
missing the core of existence.
Yes, out of phase.
Yes. I really developed.
I see now. It's distance. You see, what I didn't understand was how this related to distance, but I see now that it's a distance too high up or too low down from the level of ordinary reality.
Yes. So that you miss the core of it. And it goes on. I can't be certain of any events. And then, of course, the key is there is a fissure in my vision.
Now, this, I wondered if this was a reference to the collective unconscious here. I'm constantly reconstructing a pattern of something forever lost, and which I cannot forget. This reminds one of the Atlantis symbol at the beginning, doesn't it?
Yes.
And is this what it is, that of the thing that is forever lost?
I think it is
intended
an
to connect with the Atlantis?
Well, it's an
symbol?
Acknowledgement of a collective memory, certainly. I don't think so much there.
In other words, a contact that at one time existed but which has now been lost, and this loss is the torture. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, this theme was later taken up again in the party, in Ladders to Fire, when I described the party as the most unattended party in literature, because everyone is carried away by his obsessions.
Oh, yeah.
And the
no
obsessions
one is
interfere.
there. No one is there.
No one is there. In the Hindu sense, remember the Hindus.
I don't remember that. In
the Hindus
Ladders to Fire, is it in Ladders to Fire?
Yes, the ending of Ladders to Fire is a party, which I say no one was present at, because each one had an obsession or an illusion or delusion which interfered with reality.
Yeah. Well, now this seeing significance in things like even stones. You see, intention and premeditation. Is this a description of the hypersensitivity that accompanies neurosis? Is that the idea here?
Well, it is a description of hypersensitivity. I didn't think of it as particularly neurotic.
But I was thinking of it in connection with the distance that is has been established between you and the
It could be true that
reality.
It could make you more sensitive because you're not so closely married to things.
That's right.
You know.
Yeah, yeah. It's a compensation for the.
It's almost as if you lost one sense and
compensated by the others.
Stronger.
Yes. Now this image here.
It's so strange when you talk about poetry. Of course, you sometimes want to deny that you intended such a meaning, but the meaning does come through.
Oh yes,
anyway.
and often the writer is not conscious of it.
I'm not always aware of it.
And this image here puzzled me.
Oh well. That's a complicated one.
That's a surreal image?
I have taken on here, in a way, the lies of Sabina. Remember, in the first part, I say that her lies were not lies, but that they were
I thought
inventions
this here,
and so forth. So
as if
here
the lies
there's a
had
confusion of personality and of identity. And I have taken on, but I give a different reason for them. You see, her lies are interpreted one way. Now that I have become Sabina, in a way, but I interpret the lying of woman, but here I interpret it differently. I give it a maternal reason. You see, I give it almost a protective reason. And I'm bringing up the theme of the mensonge vital, which had impressed me very much at the time, the Bergson's mensonge. Is it Bergson, mensonge vital?
I think so, yes, the vital lie.
Yes, so I've taken into myself the lies of Sabina, but they have a different motivation. I say no human beings cannot bear the truth. So a woman lies. So there's still that obsession with the role-playing, but it has a different base.
Well, now this is
In a
Again,
sense,
just description of distance here. Oh, let's see, I remember the cold on Jupiter freezing and so forth. I remember these things. I remember on Mars. This, is this a prenatal,
no,
a reference to a prenatal consciousness?
No, I tell you, that image came back again, when I took the LSD.
Uh-huh.
That image comes, to me, is an approximation of the description of total solitude. There was a picture in The Little Prince of Saint-Exupéry where he's standing alone on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the cover of The Little Prince of Saint-Exupéry? Well, when I took the LSD, that image came back.
Uh-huh.
So here, in a sense, I think I was trying to describe the utter solitude, the withdrawal of everything, of the scholar. I came back to we talked about it rather, going into the 14th century.
Mm-hmm.
The sense of putting a distance between the world and yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And this sends you off into the planets. So I go so far away from the world. I say one can go so far away from the world as to inhabit another planet.
Yeah.
And to be totally gone.
Well, yes, I could see how this ties with the concept of distance.
Yes.
But what puzzled me was the word remember, as if you had a prior acquaintance with this.
Because I was struck by a description of cases of schizophrenia, and cases of madness that I discussed with someone in Paris once, where they pretended to have memory of other lives. Didn't pretend, they really believed that they had memories of other lives and other incarnations, but which came out in madness, and sometimes come out in neurosis, in ordinary neurosis, I think, where people go into other centuries and belong to other lives which can't touch them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's true, I use a remembering instead of simply saying I am now on Jupiter.
Yes, and this is why I wondered if it was supposed to be a prenatal, and to relate to the first part of the book, the first...
prenatal, I know in what sense you mean. I sometimes thought that we could reach such a degree of sensitivity that we could remember when we were not human beings but something else.
Oh, yes.
A cell or a crystal or some particle
I see.
in space.
Well, that it's not a specific reference to prenatal. The formation of consciousness in the womb, coming with memory of a previous...
No, in this case it would be memory of not prenatal almost. You see, there are two things in the book. There's the idea of being in a small cell inside of the mother, but there's also the idea of being born in some mysterious way in the universe, being part of the universe. There's a strange double vision there, just as there is about the collective,
well, the one would be
unconscious,
biological
and the personal.
The other.
I also acknowledge a sense of tie with some other forms of birth.
So it would be more...
Everything I used to hear about science.
Transmigration of...
yes.
What is the word? This is Indian.
This is Indian,
yes. Incarnation, reincarnation.
I think in the states of anxiety, all these states are recalled or lived out, You know, when they gave people shock treatment, they became
other
fish.
People.
They acted like fish.
Yeah.
And they acted like other animals. So I'm not sure where this comes from, but I think it's aroused in neurosis, in states, abnormal states.
Yes.
Stay tuned for future episodes taken from the interview.